The first time I noticed him, I told myself it was nothing. Just a coincidence. People walk the same streets every day. In a city like this, it's normal to see the same faces from time to time. At least, that's what I kept repeating to myself. My name is Laura, and every evening after work I took the same route home. The same bus stop. The same small grocery store on the corner. The same narrow street that led to my apartment building. My routine had been exactly the same for almost 2 years, which is probably why I noticed the change immediately. It started on a Monday. I got off the bus around 6:30 p.m. like usual and began walking down the street toward my apartment. The air was cool, and the sky was already starting to get dark. Most people were heading home from work, cars passing, people walking dogs. Everything felt normal, until I noticed someone walking behind me. At first, it didn't seem unusual. A man walking in the same direction. But after a few minutes, I realized something strange. No matter how many turns I took, he stayed behind me. Not too close, but not far enough to disappear either. Just there. The first time I really looked at him was when I stopped at the small grocery store near my building. I stepped inside to grab a bottle of water. When I came back outside a few minutes later, he was standing across the street, pretending to check his phone. The moment our eyes met, he looked away. A strange, uneasy feeling settled in my chest. But I brushed it off. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe he was waiting for someone. That night, I tried not to think about it. But the next day, it happened again. Same bus. Same stop. Same walk home. And once again, a few minutes after I started walking, I noticed him behind me. The same man. Same dark jacket. Same slow pace. Keeping his distance. My heart started beating a little faster. Maybe it was just a coincidence again. Still, I decided to test something. Instead of turning left at the usual corner near my apartment, I kept walking straight. It was a longer route home. A route I almost never took. For a moment, I thought I had been wrong. But then I heard footsteps behind me again. The man had turned too. The uneasy feeling in my chest grew stronger. I glanced back briefly. He immediately looked down at the ground, like he didn't want me to see his face. I told myself not to panic. Maybe he lived on that street too. But then something happened that made my stomach tighten. When I reached my apartment building, I quickly unlocked the door and stepped inside. Before the door closed completely, I looked back through the glass. The man had stopped on the sidewalk, standing across the street, looking directly at the entrance of my building, watching. That night, I barely slept. Every small sound outside made me tense. Every car that passed made me wonder if someone had stopped nearby. But the next morning, everything seemed normal again. I almost convinced myself that I had imagined the whole thing. Until Wednesday. That evening, when I got off the bus and started walking home again, I saw him, standing at the same corner, waiting, like he already knew exactly what time I would arrive. The moment he saw me step off the bus, he began walking, slowly, behind me. My hands tightened around my bag. My mind raced with questions. Was he following me? Or was I just overthinking everything? I walked faster. His footsteps matched my pace. I crossed the street. He crossed too. The quiet sound of his shoes on the pavement followed me all the way down the block. By the time I reached my building, my heart was pounding. I hurried inside and locked the door behind me. Then I walked straight to the window in the hallway. My hands were shaking slightly as I looked down at the street. And the moment I saw him standing there again, watching the building, I realized something that made my stomach drop. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone was following me every single day, after work, and he knew exactly where I lived. For the rest of that night, I couldn't calm down. I kept replaying the same moment in my mind. The man standing across the street, looking directly at my building, looking at the window, looking at me. The thought that someone might know where I lived made my entire body tense. The next morning, I seriously considered calling the police. But what would I even tell them? A man walked behind me on the street? It sounded ridiculous. So instead, I decided to be careful. That day after work, I stayed longer in the office. Almost an extra hour. I hoped that if I changed my routine, whoever had been following me would give up. When I finally left the building, the sky was already dark. The street outside the office looked almost empty. My chest felt tight as I walked to the bus stop. Every few seconds I glanced behind me. No one. The bus arrived a few minutes later. For the first time in days, I felt a small sense of relief. Maybe he had stopped. Maybe it really had been a strange coincidence. 20 minutes later, the bus reached my stop. I stepped off and looked around immediately. The street was quiet. No one standing on the corner. No one watching. A breath I hadn't realized I was holding slowly left my lungs. Maybe it was finally over. I started walking toward my apartment. Halfway down the block, I heard footsteps behind me. My heart dropped. I turned slowly, and there he was again. The same man, same jacket, same cap, walking toward me. The moment he noticed I had turned around, he stopped. For the first time since all of this started, we were standing face to face, only a few meters apart. My heart was pounding so loudly, I could hear it in my ears. "Why are you following me?" I asked. My voice came out stronger than I expected. The man froze for a moment. Then he slowly raised his hand slightly, as if trying to calm the situation. "I'm not following you," he said. His voice sounded nervous. "You've been behind me every day this week," I replied. "And you stand outside my building every night." For a moment he didn't speak. Then something unexpected happened. He looked embarrassed. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," he said carefully. My eyes narrowed. "A misunderstanding?" He nodded. "I just moved into the building across the street last week." My stomach tightened slightly. "What?" He pointed behind him, to the gray building on the corner. I looked in the direction he indicated. The building was directly across from mine. "I work the same hours as you," he continued, "and I get off the same bus." My mind started slowly putting the pieces together. "You're telling me this entire week you were just walking home?" He nodded. "And when you stopped at the grocery store, I was waiting for my roommate to bring the keys." My face felt warm. "And outside my building?" I asked. He gave a small, awkward smile. "I was waiting for my ride one night." Suddenly, the entire situation looked very different. Every moment that had seemed threatening now had a completely normal explanation. The bus, the street, the timing, all of it. I felt a wave of embarrassment wash over me. "So, you weren't following me?" I asked quietly. He shook his head. "No." There was a short silence between us. Then he laughed nervously. "To be honest, I thought you were following me." I blinked. "What?" "You kept turning around and changing streets," he said, "and then walking faster." For a moment we both just stood there. Then I finally laughed. A small, relieved laugh. "Well," I said, "I guess we've both had a strange week." He smiled. "Yeah, I guess we did." We said goodbye and walked in opposite directions. But as I stepped into my apartment building, I couldn't help shaking my head. Sometimes the scariest stories in our minds are just misunderstandings waiting to be explained.